So Einstein, when they dissected his brain, let's assume everybody at his age has 100,000 neurons. So when they dissected his brain, they were expecting to see 300,000 neurons. They didn't. So a normal person has 100,000 neurons, an example, and 100,000 connections. Einstein had 100,000 neurons and 1,000,000 connections. That was his genius. So connections can always be improved over time. And they start when you're young. And the more you activate the brain and give the brain what it requires, the more connections you get. Okay, so I want to go over, the scale, neurodegeneration versus neuroplasticity. Health is the ability to adapt, and the master nervous system is on the top of the triangle. And normally what's happening on some level in a person that's not adapting properly, the neurodegeneration, high allostatic stress load is outweighing the neuroplasticity, and they're not able to adapt properly. So whether you have overt neurodegeneration, like, hey, I have a tremor, or I'm a Parkinson's patient, or I'm having dementia signs, or you're having constipation, or you're having depression, anxiety, or bipolar, or you're not sleeping, or you're having gastrointestinal problems, they're all signs of neurodegeneration. The key is to flip the scale. And although with neurodegeneration, you cannot regrow neurons, you can always improve plasticity. So here's the other thing too. Is the neuron fully dead? Well, if I do a test on you, whatever test it is, even the NSI or the balance test, you do a test on someone and then you were to treat the person, right? With what the machine tells you to do, and you have them do the treatment that the machine says is going to be the best treatment to strengthen that area. If it gets dramatically better, the neurons are not dead. And that's not neuroplasticity like that, because it won't happen like that. That requires time. What it is you just gave the brain the activation. Those neurons were not at the proper level of function, but as soon as you gave them the activation, turned them on, they worked. How do you know? Because the task was done. And now they can do the task, okay? So neurons are either dead, in hibernation, one of those two states. And over a time frame, if you start working with someone and we give you the activation, and it works right away, it can't be neuroplasticity. It's that the activation did what we wanted it to do. At the same sense, it might take someone 2 weeks, and all of a sudden we change the food and we give them nutrients, and now things start to work. A little bit of neuroplasticity, but also back to activation. The neurons require activation, oxygen, proper nutrients. Under proper nutrients, stable blood sugar. And all of that is what will drive neuroplasticity over time. So the goal is to take the scale with neurodegeneration outweighing neuroplasticity and flip it. So back to the patient again. The guy's 75 years old. Let's just assume he has 75,000 neurons in his brain. Or he's supposed to have 75,000 neurons. He comes into us with neurodegeneration, overt neurodegeneration, or like this kid we're talking about that's 20 years old and showing signs of neurodegeneration already. Now he's got seizures. I mean, the guy's brain's breaking down. So he's supposed to have 75,000 neurons. If we went to God and said, how many does he have? He's got 50,000 neurons. He lost 25,000 neurons. And that is his current level of function. Are we ever bringing the neurons back? No. He's got 50,000 neurons to work with. The goal is to identify what are the upstream causes driving the neurodegeneration, and it'll be multifactorial for each individual person. And then what can you do to stop that process, hopefully, stop it or slow it. And then lastly, how many more connections can you get within the 50,000 neurons? So Einstein, when they dissected his brain, let's assume everybody at his age has 100,000 neurons. So when they dissected his brain, they were expecting to see 300,000 neurons. They didn't. So a normal person has 100,000 neurons, an example, and 100,000 connections. Einstein had 100,000 neurons and 1,000,000 connections. That was his genius. So connections can always be improved over time. And they start when you're young. And the more you activate the brain and give the brain what it requires, the more connections you get. So if you take someone that has lost neurons, again, I'm supposed to have 75,000, now I have 50,000, you cannot bring back the 25,000 neurons. They're dead, they're gone. You can always wire around dead neurons, and through continuous treatment down the road, rewire the brain and get much higher levels of function for that person. So you don't know what the outcome's going to be in an older person because you don't know what their body's able to do. But if you look at the textbooks and we go, okay, the textbooks, the pathology textbook says this is what happens, this is what we do, this is the outcome, I'm not going to limit anybody because it's a ridiculous idea. I have no idea what that person's brain or body's going to do. So I'm just going to measure, treat, and remeasure and look to see the changes over a time frame. But might it be, think about this for a second, might it be that you're taking care of a neurodegeneration patient and the person needs 6 months and 10 days and 3 hours, and all of a sudden their walking is 90% better? It might be. And also remember this too, the wiring is, the neuroplasticity is going up every time they come here and they get the treatment. Every time they exercise, they're helping activate. Every time they eat right, they're helping with neuroplasticity. Take the vitamins and minerals, they're helping with neuroplasticity. Turning off the neuroinflammation, helping with neuroplasticity. Using the lasers, which increases ATP and helps with inflammation, improves neuroplasticity. All those things. Number one thing to improve neuroplasticity that you can do every day, all day, is to go for a run. Exercise increases BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor, which is a chemical that's majorly required for the neurons to stay healthy and for you to keep connecting. The less you move, the less you activate. And remember also, general exercise is good for the brain. It will not ever take the place of what we do here because this is specific to you. So unless someone knows what they're doing to find what I call the dead spots in the body, you're not going to exercise that out. It's just not going to happen.
It's just in addition to what they do here.
Yeah. So you could stop it now.
Can I check?